Today's topic is self-transformation through awareness. I've deeply explained this in today's video that how you can overcome from laziness and master yourself.
Life is not always kind. It throws stones, it wounds. Sometimes it brings dark nights that feel endless, pain that feels unjust, and suffering that feels too heavy to carry. But in the silent heart of that suffering lies a forgotten truth, the possibility of transformation. The seed of awakening is buried not in pleasure, but in pain, not in perfection, but in the wound. The greatest masters were not born out of comfort. They emerged through fire, and Osho reminds us, the poison of suffering, if taken consciously, becomes medicine. We have been taught to avoid pain, to numb it, to escape it, to blame someone for it. But pain is a teacher, and like any great teacher, it does not come to entertain you, it comes to awaken you. You can fight it and drown in it, or you can sit with it, breathe through it, and allow it to show you something deeper about yourself. Osho says, don't escape your suffering, go into it, watch it, become deeply aware of it, and in that awareness, something miraculous happens. The very energy that was pain becomes peace. The same fire that was burning you begins to illuminate you. This is the alchemy of consciousness. It does not need tools, rituals, or beliefs. It only needs awareness, to sit with your anger and watch it without judgment, to hold your sadness like a child, not trying to fix it, just being with it, to accept that even your darkest emotion is not your enemy, it is a part of your inner sky, and if you watch it long enough, it changes form. Anger melts into compassion, grief becomes love, fear transforms into freedom. Most people want a life without storms, but Osho teaches that it is in the storm that your roots grow deeper. It is in chaos that you find clarity. The pain you resist today becomes the wall between you and your truth. But the pain you embrace becomes the bridge. We are conditioned to chase happiness. We think happiness is the goal, but happiness that comes from the outside is always temporary. True happiness, the one that cannot be shaken, is born when you learn how to turn suffering into self-awareness. When you can sit alone in the darkness and still feel whole, when you are no longer afraid of your own depth, that is real freedom. This transformation is not about pretending that suffering is beautiful. It is about realizing that your awareness is more powerful than your suffering. It is not about loving the poison, it is about discovering the inner alchemist who can turn it into nectar. Imagine your pain not as a punishment, but as raw material. Like coal under immense pressure becoming a diamond, your suffering too holds the possibility of transformation, but it cannot be forced. It must be approached with patience and presence. Osho often said, whatever you suppress becomes poison. Whatever you bring into awareness becomes a blessing. We live in a world obsessed with fixing things, fixing the body, fixing the mind, fixing emotions. But what if nothing is broken? What if every emotion, every wound is part of your inner journey? Pain does not need to be removed. It needs to be witnessed, not with resistance, but with love, because in the very act of witnessing, healing begins. This is why meditation is so essential, not as a technique, but as a way of seeing. Meditation is not about sitting silently with closed eyes. It's about looking inward without opinion, without judgment. It is seeing your anger rise and fall, your sadness pass like clouds in the sky. And in that witnessing, you are no longer the emotion, you become the sky itself. Osho was clear. Emotions are not the problem, identification with them is. When you say, I am angry, you become the anger, but when you say anger is passing through me, You create space. That space is your freedom, and in that space, even poison loses its power. Take, for example, a heartbreak. Most people drown in it, seek distraction, or close their heart forever. But what if you could sit with the pain and learn from it? What if the heart was not broken, but broken open? In that crack, light enters. Compassion grows, depth arises. You begin to understand that love was never about holding on, it was about allowing and letting go. Transforming suffering doesn't mean you won't feel pain again. It means pain will no longer control you. It will pass through you like wind through trees, leaving you deeper, wiser, more alive. Each time you face it with awareness, you burn a little calmer. You drop a little ego. You return a little closer to your true self. The ego thrives on drama, on clinging to pain and making it your identity. But awareness is silent. It doesn't react. It simply sees. And in that seeing, you begin to dissolve the illusion that suffering is your enemy. You begin to sense that everything, even suffering, is part of a greater intelligence, a cosmic invitation to evolve. We don't need to fight suffering. Fighting creates resistance. Resistance creates more pain. The key is surrender, not in weakness, but in understanding. To say, yes, this too is part of my journey. I will not run. I will stay present. This presence is not passive. It is active, alive, fiery in its stillness. And slowly the poison begins to shift. You see life not as happening to you, but happening for you. The real revolution happens when you stop blaming others for your suffering, not because others are innocent, but because blame keeps you chained. The moment you say, I am responsible for what I feel, and I choose to face it with awareness, you take your power back. That's the beginning of transformation, when you stop waiting for the world to change and start changing your relationship with the world. Osho would often laugh at how people seek gurus to escape their pain, to be comforted, to be given answers. But a real master, he said, does not give you comfort, he gives you clarity. He does not remove your suffering, he shows you how to face it. Because unless you walk through your own fire, you will never know your strength. Unless you drink your own poison with full consciousness, you will never know the taste of true freedom. And that is why Osho's teachings are not for the faint-hearted. They are not for those seeking quick relief or shallow happiness. They are for those ready to turn inward and risk everything for truth. Because truth requires the courage to face all that you are, not just the beautiful parts, but the broken, the bitter, the buried. And in that facing, a miracle begins. What once felt like poison starts becoming the doorway to awakening. You start to see suffering as a friend in disguise, harsh, maybe, but honest. It strips away illusions. It burns away lies. It shows you what truly matters. And perhaps for the first time, you stop living like a victim and start living like a seeker. Transformation does not happen overnight. It is not an event. It is a constant unfolding. A flower does not open with a scream, it blooms in silence. So does your inner being, slowly, with care, with love, with attention, and in that blooming, the energy of suffering is no longer toxic. It becomes fuel, it becomes your fire, it becomes the very force that propels you toward freedom. And what is that freedom? It is not the absence of pain, it is the absence of fear. When you are no longer afraid of pain, it loses its grip. When you are no longer addicted to pleasure, you are no longer enslaved. You become whole, not because life is perfect, but because you no longer need it to be. You walk with dignity, not because the path is easy, but because you have found your center. And that center cannot be touched by circumstances. It cannot be poisoned. It cannot be broken. That center is your consciousness, pure, untouched, eternal. And once you live from that space, every experience becomes sacred. Every tear becomes a baptism. Every challenge becomes a blessing in disguise. The greatest alchemy, Osho said, is not turning metal into gold, it is turning unconsciousness into awareness, fear into love, hatred into compassion. This is the true art of living, and it is available to every human being, not in some distant future, but here and now. But for this alchemy to begin, you must first drop your resistance to life. Stop wishing it were different. Stop labeling experiences as good or bad. Every experience is a teacher. Even the darkest night has stars in it, but you must be still to see them. When you resist, you miss the message, but when you accept, life begins to reveal its deeper meaning. People often ask, how can I be peaceful in a world full of pain? The answer is simple, yet radical. Stop trying to escape pain, and instead move through it with total awareness. Peace is not found by avoiding storms, it is found by becoming the eye of the storm. Still, silent, centered, watching everything, clinging to nothing. This is why suffering exists not to punish you, but to wake you up, to shake you out of your sleep, to push you beyond the known into the unknown. And yes, the unknown is scary because the mind only knows how to live in the past. But growth never happens in safety. It happens in surrender, in letting go of who you were, so you can become who you are meant to be. Osho used to say that life is not a problem to be solved, it is a mystery to be lived, and pain is part of that mystery. Don't rush to fix it, sit with it, breathe into it, learn from it, because in every wound there is wisdom. In every breakdown there is a break through waiting, but only if you are brave enough to stay, and if you truly stay not with fear, but with curiosity, something shifts. You begin to notice the subtle intelligence of existence. You begin to see that even your worst moments were part of a larger design. That without them you would have remained asleep. That pain was not the end, it was the beginning of your awakening. So instead of asking, why me? Ask, what is this here to teach me? Instead of asking, when will this end? Ask, how can I grow through this? These small shifts in attitude are what turn poison into medicine, not by changing the outside, but by transforming your inner lens. When you become the witness, you rise above the drama. You no longer drown in the emotion, you observe it like a wave, rising, peaking, passing, and slowly you stop identifying with every wave that crashes. You start recognizing the ocean within you, vast, deep, unshaken. That is your true self. That is where your real power lies. Once you begin to witness without judgment, you enter into meditation, not the kind that requires silence and sitting still, but the kind that becomes your natural state. Meditation, Osho taught, is awareness. It is watching without interfering. It is seeing without trying to control. And this awareness is what burns the poison of the mind. The mind always wants to fix, to explain, to blame. But consciousness just watches, and in that pure watching, transformation happens, not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. You surrendered to the moment. You allowed yourself to feel fully, without becoming a slave to feeling. You allowed the poison to pass through you, and because you did not cling to it, it became medicine. It is in this space that real healing begins, not surface healing, but soul, deep healing. You stop patching wounds and begin understanding them. You stop suppressing darkness and begin embracing it, not to celebrate it, but to make it conscious, and the moment something unconscious is brought into light, its grip weakens, it loses its power over you. Most people live in reaction. If someone is cruel, they become defensive. If life is harsh, they retreat. But the one who is awake responds with awareness. He doesn't react, he reflects. He doesn't mimic the violence of others, he mirrors truth. And in doing so, he disarms the negativity. He stops the cycle of suffering. To transform poison, you don't need power. You need presence. You don't need weapons. You need wisdom. And that wisdom arises from being deeply rooted in yourself, not your ego, not your personality, but your being. That still, silent center within you which no situation can shake. And what does this transformed being look like? He walks through life with grace. He smiles in the face of adversity, not because he is naive, but because he knows pain is not his enemy. He doesn't run from challenges, he welcomes them as teachers. He has tasted the worst and turned it into the best. He has taken the fire and forged himself in it. Such a person becomes magnetic. Others are drawn to him, not because he offers escape, but because he offers clarity. He shows by his presence that another way of living is possible. A life not driven by fear, but guided by awareness. A life not reactive, but responsive. A life where poison becomes the very fuel of enlightenment. This is the vision Osho offered to those willing to walk the path. Not a comfortable journey, but a conscious one. Not a life without storms, but a life where storms cleanse rather than destroy. And that, he said, is the miracle of human consciousness, that it can turn any experience into awakening, if lived with totality and trust. Trust that is the foundation. Without trust, transformation is impossible. Trust in existence, trust in your inner capacity to transcend, trust in the intelligence of life that even in your darkest hour, something sacred is unfolding. Osho reminded us again and again, life is not against you, it is working for your growth. Even if that growth comes through fire, but modern man has forgotten how to trust. We've been taught to control everything, our emotions, our relationships, our future. We build walls of logic, strategies, and defenses. And in that control, we lose connection. We become armored, mechanical, alive, but not living, functioning, but not feeling. To transform poison into medicine, the armor must fall. You must be vulnerable. Open, willing to feel even the rawest emotions without judgment. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is the path to inner strength, because only the open heart can heal. Only the open heart can love, and love is the ultimate medicine. Not romantic love, not dependent love, but love that arises from your own fullness, a love that has no demand, no condition, no fear. This love is fire. It burns away everything false. It leaves you naked in your being. And in that nakedness, in that authenticity, you are reborn. The one who lives this way does not avoid the poison of life, he drinks it, knowing that through awareness, even the bitter becomes sweet. He walks through the marketplace with the same grace as he would walk through a temple. He touches each moment as sacred. He carries his meditation not in isolation, but in the thick of life, in conversations, in heartbreaks, in chaos. And slowly that life becomes a teaching, not through preaching, not through effort, but simply by presence. People feel it, your peace, your clarity, your compassion, and they begin to ask, what is your secret? The secret is simple. You stopped fighting life. You started flowing with it. You turned every obstacle into a stepping stone, every curse into a blessing, every scar into a story of transformation. This is the essence of Osho's wisdom, not to escape the world, but to use the world as your path. Not to be afraid of pain, but to befriend it. Not to fight your darkness, but to hold a candle inside it. Then even the poison of anger, fear, jealousy becomes fuel for awareness. Nothing is wasted. Everything becomes sacred. When this realization dawns that nothing in life is wasted, that every shadow has the potential to reveal light, you begin to live with a deep sense of gratitude. Not a forced thankfulness, but an authentic reverence for all that life brings. Gratitude not just for joy, but also for sorrow, not just for gains, but also for losses, because everything has served your awakening. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and instead ask, "What is this here to teach me?" That shift alone changes everything. You are no longer a victim. You are a student of existence, and every event becomes a sacred lesson. Every person a mirror, every moment a doorway. You start walking through life like a flame calm, clear, untouchable. No storm can shake you, no poison can destroy you, because now you are alchemist of the soul. You have turned your wounds into wisdom, your fear into freedom, your past into a path, and your very being becomes a living reminder that transformation is always possible. This is not a theory. This is a lived experience, and anyone, absolutely anyone who chooses to become conscious can walk this path. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to start by witnessing, by accepting, by trusting. Osho never gave people beliefs. He gave them tools to see clearly, and this vision of turning life's poison into medicine is perhaps one of his most powerful gifts. It does not deny pain. It does not bypass suffering. But it gives you the eyes to use everything, absolutely everything, for your awakening. So don't curse the poison, don't run from the dark. Instead, light your candle, watch with awareness, feel with depth, trust with innocence, and walk your path with the knowing that nothing in existence is against you. You are here to grow, to evolve, to rise, and every drop of life, sweet or bitter, is part of your becoming. This is the way of the awakened. This is the power of transformation. And this is the invitation waiting for you here now.